What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another installment of Hoggie's Beer Reviews, and today we're reviewing another craft beer in a can. Nothing new to this brewery, putting beer in a can. This is from Oskar Blues in Colorado. Oskar Blues, for those who aren't familiar, is a brewery that brings us the Dale's Pale Ale, the Mama's Little Yellow Pills, the Gordon, the Old Chub, and the 1050. And now, this. This is the Gubna. The Gubna, an Imperial IPA from Oskar Blues in Colorado. This thing is 10% ABV. This is a new beer from them. I've been really looking forward to trying this since I heard about it, since it came out, which is about 3-4 months ago. So on that note, I have to give a really big shout out and a really big thank you to my man Matt, also known as MT Stewart on YouTube. Fellow beer reviewer and the other member of the Florida leg of the YouTube beer reviewers community. Matt and I met up in Miami last weekend, and he was nice enough to hook me up with this 4-pack of Oskar Blues Gubna, because we do get Oskar Blues in this area up here in the Treasure Coast, but not this beer, not yet. Since it's a new beer, I guess they're being selective with where they distribute it. I don't know if it's just because quantities are limited or what the deal is. But this beer came out a few months ago, and from what I've heard, it won't be arriving in this area until much later this year. So again, Matt was nice enough to hook me up with 4 of these bad boys. So Matt, thanks, dude. You wanted the review, you wanted my opinion on it, you're gonna get it. And cool dude. Check out his channel. He's down in Broward County, right outside the cesspool of Dade County. But he does beer reviews. He does some good stuff. So check out his channel. I'm gonna put the link to his channel down here in the little info thing. And again, Matt, thanks, and I'm going to get to this now. For everybody else out there, getting back to the review, Gubna Imperial IPA. On Beer Advocate, it receives a B overall out of 406 reviews, of course, from the Oskar Blues Grill and Brewery in Colorado. Categorized on here as an American Double or Imperial IPA at 10% ABV, and it's listed as a spring seasonal. Now, I don't know how religious Oskar Blues is going to be with their seasonals, because their seasonals, it's this and the 1050, which is, I guess, their winter cold weather seasonal. So I don't know how religious they're going to be about only producing them for set months or whatever. Regardless, it doesn't matter. It's out now, so if you can get it, get it. And it also says on here, this beer is brewed with 3 malts: North American 2-row barley, German dark Munich, and rye malt, and 1 hop, exclusively Summit hops. It's 10% alcohol by volume and 100 IBUs, which means it's very bitter, very hoppy, or at least it should be at 100 IBUs. And for those who don't know, that's IBUs are international bittering units, basically a measure of how bitter a beer is, how hoppy a beer is. So that's that. We're finally going to get to the beer. 12 ounces in a can of an Imperial IPA. This should be good. I've heard a lot of good things about this beer. Matt spoke highly of this beer, so we're going to get to it. And before we do, and let me pull one out here in the meantime. Before we get to the beer, I'm going to crack this thing open now. Take a look at the can. In case anybody out there is like me and is wondering where the name Gubna comes from, we don't know. I looked it up, and there was a brief interview I read with the head brewer from Oskar Blues, and he just mentioned the song Sweet Home Alabama. He's from Alabama, the head brewer of Oskar Blues is, and there's kind of a political message to that song, and I'm not going to get into the history of that song. If anybody's curious, you got Google. You're on the computer right now, so look it up. But it's called Gubna, and there's a line in the song that says, "Does your conscience bother you? Tell the truth." On the top of the can here on the back, it says, "Does your conscience," C-A-N capital signs, conscience, a play on conscience. "Does your conscience bother you? Tell the truth." And of course, it's called Gubna. And when asked about it, the head brewer, and I forget his name, forgive me, but he basically said, in Alabama they love the Gubna, which is again another quote from the song. So there's something to it. I guess maybe it's a personal quirk of him. I don't know, but that's kind of where that comes from. It surprised me when I read that, because I always thought it was kind of like an English Cockney thing, like, "Hello, Gubna," and I'm bad at accents, but you've heard that before. It's the British thing. So I thought that's where the name came from. I was wrong. Who would have thought it's Alabama and Leonard Skinner? But regardless, onto the beer, and since Matt and I met up at the Titanic Brew Pub Brewing Company down in Miami, and we had a few of their beers and talked about some other beers, I figured I'd break out my Titanic glass for this review. I usually do IPAs out of my IPA goblet, but I'll forego that today. Another note for using this glass, Oskar Blues makes the Gordon beer. It's also an Imperial IPA or an Imperial Amber, it's loosely categorized, but it's really good, and I've had that once, and it was on tap at Titanic, so that's pretty damn fitting. So enough of all that. Let's pour out 10% of IPA. Yeah, whatever. Alright. Gubna. Ooh, okay. It's pretty clear. There's a bit of a little haziness to it. I can see through it, but yeah, there's some haze. And it's an amber, an orange amber color. That was kind of a soft pour. I didn't get a lot of head, but still got a bit of a good foamy IPA head form in there. And I'm just smelling this. I'm smelling hops, man. It's a grapefruity hop just kind of rising up. Again, I like the color. It's not dark, it's not light, it's right in the middle. It's this interesting orangey golden hue. It looks good. And there is malt underlying malt to the nose. But there's a strong citrus grapefruit element. Again, Summit hops. The hop character shouldn't be that complex because there's only one hop used. In there I'm also getting some subtle fruit, hints of dark fruit, hints of mango. Again, it's the sweetness of the malt, the citrus aspect of the hop. They play real well off each other. So enough of that, let me just take a drink. Wow. For a beer this big at 10%, it's easy to drink. I had another 10% Imperial IPA, the Maharaja from Avery. I had that on tap a couple weeks ago, and that was a big ass beer, to the point that you really had to sip it because it was so rich and so full bodied and so strong. This for 10%, it's surprising that this is a 10% beer. It drinks like a much lighter beer. Now the hops hit you right up front. You get a good hop bite. The body comes along behind it, and it's kind of a light medium, or a heavy light, however you want to put it. And in with the body, in with that middle, comes some malt sweetness. But it's coming along still with some bitterness from the hops. Again, 100 IBUs, they used a whole lot of Summit hops in this. You know, as the body is cruising by your tongue and going down your throat, you're still getting that resinous, citrusy, bitter effect from the hops up front. And as you finish swallowing, you get even more grapefruit, hints of pine, and just resinous hop on the back end. And this is warmed up just a tad too, and I'm not really detecting any alcohol. If you play with it a little, you will get a little bit of warmth from the alcohol, but man, at 10%, it's well masked. It's well hidden. This is a good beer. Again, not something you want to drink too much of at 10%. Take it easy, take it light, but this is really good. As you drink a little more and as it warms up just a bit, the sweetness from the malts, and there is a hint of spiciness in the malt, so there's your rye malt. But as it warms up, the malt comes out a little more. You get more of a body, more of a character to the malt there. You know what? I can't say enough about this. This is just a really good beer. It's really solid, and it's simple and complex at the same time. I don't know how that makes sense, but it does. And I'll leave it at that, man. Gubna from Oskar Blues. I'll give this a glass full, just because at 10% it's still easy to drink. At 10% the alcohol is well masked, and for a beer with only one type of hop used, the hop character, while not super complex, it's not overbearing in that flavor. It's well balanced at 100 IBUs. It plays off the malt very well. And yeah, it's just a well-made beer. If you like hops, if you like big beers and big IPAs, Gubna's for you. I'll leave it at that and get the hell out of here. So everybody, thanks for watching. Matt, thanks for the beer. And stay tuned, folks. There's more coming. Cheers.